Hi, my name's Phil. I'm the host and creator of the Taming Hindrances podcast, where we talk about self-awareness and mental health. And every once in a while, I do reviews on products that I think may help with some part of those subjects. Today's is all about sleep and getting more restorative sleep. And the product in question is Clif High's Pure Sleep. So let us get started. Now, Clif High's Pure Sleep is specifically designed to get us a more restorative sleep. And as with most of my reviews, quick and dirty up front. What is it? A daily supplement for most, more restful sleep, restorative sleep. And does it work? It does. So now the quick and dirty's over, let's get into more of the deeper dive here. So Clif has, he said that he based this product off of Ayurvedic and Eastern medicines to create a more natural sleep cycle or a sleep aid to do so. And it's also based on getting a better, more restorative sleep. And the way we go about that is going into non-REM sleep. So for those of you who might not know, you have two sleep cycles, specifically as we go through multiple cycles every night, but there's two pieces to that cycle. One is REM sleep, or random eye movement sleep, and that's our dream states. And then there's non-REMs, when you're not in that dreamy state. And that's really where most of the deeper restorative sleep comes from, is when we're in that non-REM sleep. And that's typically down around the delta wave area in our brainwave patterning. Alpha would be you going about your daily life, and then we step all the way down. Then we have theta and delta. Theta is more of that REM sleep area. Delta is more of that deep restorative sleep. And delta sleep is actually the only point in time where we actually do any DNA repair or really heavy oxidative stress removal. Our cells really go in and clean us out when we're in that deep delta sleep. Clif has a proprietary blend, but he does mention on the back of the bag here that it's magnesium, as magnesium glycinate, gamma-aminobutyric acid, known as GABA, red dragon fruit, nutmeg, glycine, and monk fruit. So we'll deep dive into some of the ingredients here. We'll start off with magnesium, and it's an essential mineral, protects metabolic health. It increases GABA, so we'll get into the GABA next. But magnesium is involved in a ton of different functions that are enzyme-related actions. It has a key role in ATP activation, which is essentially how your body uses energy, is ATP production and activation. It regulates essential mineral transport, such as calcium and potassium, regulates blood pressure, cholesterol. It's a part of bone development and acts as an electrolyte. Magnesium's kind of important here. But it also helps control the stress response and hormones that elevate and diminish stress. So that's, lowering of the cortisol level, working with the endocrine system. And that's really magnesium's huge role here in our deep restorative sleep functions, is it's helping to, get us into that baseline for where the hormones need to be so that our body can do what it needs to do during sleep to fix us, essentially. Going on to GABA, the gamma-aminobutyric acid, it's a neurotransmitter and it's anti-anxiety. So that definitely helps with non-REM, and it helps manage anxiety and provides a feeling of calm, stabilizes our blood pressure, which is super important when we're sleeping. If we have a blood pressure response while we're sleeping, that's going to pull us out of sleep. So it helps regulate that. And it can lower blood pressure due to hypertension. Again, if you're hypertense, you might not be getting a set of sleep, or, getting great sleep as is. So this kind of might help with that. And then a big one for me is it can help with inflammation. And inflammation is kind of like, it's the precursor to almost all major disease. And it's really important that we try to fight it as much as possible. But it definitely has been studied and shown to increase non-REM, which again is the important deep delta restorative sleep we're looking for, repairing DNA, getting rid of oxidative stress. And it has its effect on its duration. So GABA can help us get longer periods of non-REM compared to our REM sleep. And again, we go through different cycles, and everyone's different. You'd have to kind of measure your own, or kind of get a better understanding of your own sleep cycles. But you're falling asleep. You go into a REM, cycle, which is the, dreaming, and there's some restorative parts there. But then we get into that deep non-REM, that deep delta sleep down around the 3 hertz and below brainwave patterning, particularly down to like 0.5, 0.2. And that's where, if we can get longer periods of that, we can get more more restorative cycles in. We can flush out more toxins. We can flush out more oxidative stress. We can repair more DNA. It's just a better time if we can get more time in that non-REM to get a more restorative and healing sleep, if you will. Moving on, we have red dragon fruit. It's an antioxidant, beta carotene, lycopene, magnesium, vitamin C, fiber, omega. It's got all sorts of stuff in it, which is super helpful because we need a couple of those things for some of the other functions that are happening here. So it's high in vitamins and minerals that support immune functions. And again, if we're getting deep restorative sleep, we want our immune functions working, because if we're trying to get rid of those oxidative stress pieces, we need the immune system to come in and do that. That's what it does. Macrophages, white blood cells, those types of things are what are taking out that oxidative stress and then, flushing it out of our body. It can help decrease bad cholesterol. It's high in antioxidants, helps stabilize blood sugar. Super important to have our blood sugar stabilized while we're sleeping, because again, if we have an insulin response, we might go into an anxiety state, or we might go into a fight or flight state. Our sugar responses are super important while we're sleeping. That's why they always say, don't eat sweets before you go to bed. Again, anti-inflammatory, supports the eyes and the nervous system and the bones, which is kind of important when we put all this together, specifically the nervous system area. That's really important here. But it also functions as, if it's supporting the eyes and supporting the nervous system, the bones, it's almost like a targeted system in that sense, where, red dragon fruit, when we're getting that deep restful sleep, it's providing us a little bit extra beneficial items, such as the omega-3, the iron, the B1, 2, and 3, the calcium, lycopene. It's providing some of those things, the beta carotene, when we're talking about the eyes, that the body can then use during that restorative sleep. Moving on to nutmeg, it's essential oil, anti-inflammatory, can be an aphrodisiac. It's been studied. It's a digestion aid, detoxifying, antimicrobial, antibacterial, which is important if we're, again, cleaning out the system. We want things that are going to help with that. Has some essential minerals in it, and it's an antidepressant, which I found extremely interesting. I did not actually know that about nutmeg. And that antidepressant factor goes along with the controlling of the anxiety, controlling blood sugar, those types of things. So it improves the quality and duration of sleep, and that's been tested. So that's one thing they say with nutmeg. Now, it is specifically noted that if you go too crazy with the nutmeg, it doesn't have the same effect. You can take too much nutmeg. It might make you a little bit too uppity. So I imagine Clif blended it in just right. So I said it works, so obviously he did. Now, it improves the quality of our sleep, but it also may help in controlling insomnia. So there's a dual-fold thing going on here. Is what exactly nutmeg is doing has a lot to do with how we kind of process it. It has that anti-inflammatory and stress reduction properties. That's its essential oils and minerals that it has involved with it. It's a digestive aid. And again, that antimicrobial and antibacterial piece really makes it kind of dual function when we're talking about the nervous system interactions here with the controlling of insomnia, and then also improving the duration and quality of our sleep. So it's doing a lot. And that antidepressant is via the aphrodisiac properties as both a stimulant and a sedative. So again, that's when we look at that aphrodisiac product, it's not so much of like, hey, it's going to get you raring to go. It has a control over, it's a stimulant and a sedative. So it's controlling whatever chemical processes are going into that production of the endocrine system of, are we looking at dopamine, serotonin, cortisol, norepinephrine? What are we doing here? That's kind of what it's aiding in. And again, it can go either way. If you take a ton of nutmeg, it's going to be more of a stimulant, and that's not really what we're looking for here. Whereas if you take a little bit of nutmeg, which again is probably how Clif blended this in, it's more of a sedative, and it kind of, relaxes us and gives us that deeper sleep. And also it can regulate blood pressure and circulation. Also important, again, if blood pressure increases while we're sleeping, we're probably going to come out of sleep. We're probably going to be like, what's going on? What's happening to me? Moving on to glycine. It's an amino acid and it's a neurotransmitter. It's a pretty important neurotransmitter, to be honest. It can help us fall asleep quicker and improve sleep quality. It increases sleep efficiency. It reduces insomnia, again, working with nutmeg. And when we look at the full function of the body, it aids multiple things. It's a protein builder via collagen production. It breaks down fatty acids in food and regulates acid levels in digestive tract, which is important for us absorbing all the other things that are in this product. Glycine is going to help us, pull in the other pieces and use them more effectively because it's regulating those acid levels and it's helping the digestive tract do that. Then on a deeper level, when we are in that non-REM sleep, it helps with DNA and RNA production. And this is important because if we're doing DNA repair, we need to be producing new DNA and RNA to make up the loss. If we're getting rid of that deep oxidative stress on the DNA level, we need to reproduce it. And that's where your telomeres come in and all these things for those types of things. That's really where this is kind of its shining point to me, is it helps with that. Not only are we, again, repairing oxidative stress, it's helping produce the pieces of DNA and RNA that are going to take over for the ones that we're kind of washing out here. It regulates our blood sugar levels, helps improve the blood sugar to the cells and the tissue and how they're consumed for energy. Again, it's doing a lot of these different bodily functions, which can help the other things do what they need to do. Aids inflammation response by limiting unhealthy inflammation to increase healing. Again, we're looking for deep restorative sleep here. If you can aid the healing process, super important. Stimulates and inhibits cells as a neurotransmitter, and particularly in the production of serotonin, a key mood stabilizer. So I was talking about dopamine, serotonin, cortisol, norepinephrine. Those are kind of your big four chemicals that the endocrine system is producing that helps us in everything we do. It really helps us in where we're going with, are we in a fight or flight state? Norepinephrine goes through the roof, cortisol goes through the roof. Are we in a relaxed restorative state? Serotonin rises, dopamine levels off, and we get into that rest digest with our nervous system. So the fact that it's stimulating and inhibiting cells dependent where the neurotransmitters need to be is really keeping us, again, afloat in that non-REM, more so than probably in our REM cycle, and just keeping us in sleep longer. So it tends to improve our sleep quality, and it also helps us get us there quicker. Moving on to monk fruit, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, antimicrobial. It's used in Chinese traditional medicine, which is where I've seen it used a lot, and the anti-inflammatory properties are pretty epic, to be honest. But they have to do with these things called mogersides. And mogersides are a sugar substitute. That's why monk fruit's sweet, and that's why a lot of people use it, like in doing keto and those types of things. It has these sugar substitute ideas known as mogersides, and there are a bunch of mogersides, and they all have different chains in their sugar. Monosucralate, polysucralates. Their sucralate chains are all a little bit different, and they do different things based on that. It's pretty interesting to get into if you want to, but it is a sugar substitute, and it also doesn't affect our glycemic insulin production. That's why I mentioned it for keto. It's super important if you have a sweetener that you're going to take before bed, it doesn't have an effect on that glycemic insulin production, because if we go into a glycemic insulin production state, we're getting ready to do something. That's what the body, we get the sugar rush, we get those types of things. If, the diabetic issue is that specifically, it's specifically designed for, I apologize about the slides. That insulin response is what's going to bring you out of sleep. If you have, if you eat sugar right before you go to bed and you do manage to fall asleep, it's that response that's going to bring you into a waking state inside of your dream state. So when you're in REM, the dreamy state, that REM state is what's going to get you pulled out. If you're not down in deep, if you're down in non-REM, your body's going to cycle out of that, but it's harder to pull someone out of a non-REM state, a real deep delta state, than it is to pull them out of a theta state. If you're in a dreaming state, you're still fairly aware. Typically what, if we're talking about Chinese traditional medicine here, which I've seen this monk fruit used before, our ears are producing a tone. outwardly. And when we sleep, that tone's kind of what we're hearing. You just don't notice it. But what it does is it blocks out other sounds. Not to say that we don't pay attention and we're not listening. Our vagus nervous system is always kind of projecting out and looking for threats and those types of things, even when we're sleeping. But if we have an insulin response while we're in that REM state, if we're in that dream state, that's where you usually become aware you're dreaming, or it pulls you out of the dream and you're just like, oh, what's going on? And then you think something's happening in the real world. So it's a natural sweetener. As we said, it's, the mogersides has little effect on the glycemic index, again, important. And the mogersides may also be anti-carcinogenic, anti-tumoral, anti-fibrotic for, lung health. It's important to note that because these mogersides have, again, different effects on the body that really come into play when we're in that deep delta non-REM sleep. They can help, anti-carcinogenic, anti-tumoral. They can help, go against those things. So again, with these slides, I apologize for the slides. They're not doing what I want them to do here. So it may lower histamine responses, aiding in keeping breathing channels clear, which I'm hesitant on that one, but it's definitely kind of been shown, kind of not been shown. But I mean, if it's doing that, if it's lowering the histamine responses, it's helping our breathing just kind of stay stable throughout the night, which is important because, again, if you're breathing, if you stop breathing, your body's gonna be like, oh, well, I gotta wake up. So that's kind of important there. Now, as a note on the directions, it's to, let's see here. As a dietary supplement, take 4,000 milligrams or 1 scoop. He does provide a scoop in the bag, which is very nice. It's a half tablespoon scoop with milk an hour before bedtime for best results. So we have to note its directions, as advised, are to take it with milk. And there could be some reasons for that. I've done both, which I'll get into here in a second, but milk does have tryptophan at low levels, which is an amino acid that aids serotonin production. That's the one people have always talked about with the Thanksgiving meals, the turkey, the tryptophan thing. It's hit or miss. Melatonin does definitely have that at low levels, which melatonin is a sleep hormone. It regulates our circadian rhythm. We, take in sunlight during the day, or if you're like me and you work in a cave, then you don't, but you can take some vitamin D and that'll get, used to make melatonin production. Also might be a good idea to supplement some melatonin on top of that if you have to. I'm not a doctor, cannot diagnose or prescribe. Take everything I say with a grain of salt. The milk thing, there's also been some, I don't want to call it research because no one's really done too much research on it. There's some anecdotal claims that it's a child memory inducement situation, kind of like when you pick up the kitten by the back of the neck. Don't do that, by the way. They don't like it. It's those types of things. It's, again, with these, I apologize for these slides. They're just not working the way they're supposed to. Yeah, it's a child. It could be a child memory thing. If you drank milk when you were a kid before you went to bed, those types of things. Is it more routine? Possibly. Our bodies get used to routine. Our bodies really like routine, specifically for when we're getting ready for sleep. A sleep routine can really help you get ready to go to bed way better than if you're just trying to like willy-nilly it. So it could be the routine interaction of drinking milk before bed. And then there also could be some interactions with other ingredients. I mean, milk has, calcium in it, has tryptophan, melatonin, and has other things in it. So the fat content in milk is maybe, in my guess, going to be the most important part, that some of those other products could use of fat to help through the digestive system to get absorbed correctly. It's like when you take vitamin D, it's better to take vitamin D with a fat because it's fat soluble, so it helps you absorb it more. And that's going to be my big guess here. It's going to be that the reason to take this with milk is that it helps with the absorption of the other product. It helps with the absorption of the other ingredients. That's going to be my guess there. So as a wrap up here, it's Clif High Pure Sleep. It's a great product. I love it. It's a daily supplement for restful and restorative sleep. Does it work? Yes. I've tested it for about 4 months now. It's a little over 4 months. And I've used different methods. So I've done the nightly. I did that for the first month, and that really worked well. I do get a deep restorative sleep. I tend to wake in the middle of the night. I'm just one of those people. I get the witching hour waking situation. So I do notice when I do wake, I am like groggy and I'm like ready for sleep. Like I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I feel good even if I only have like the 4 hours that I normally get till that point. And then I'm just like, oh yeah, I feel great. I go right back to bed, which is nice because sometimes it can be tough for me to get back to bed. And this seems to help with that. Now in that month, I did test both milk and water. I just take it in water. That's just what I do with it now. I just don't keep milk in the house very often, but I did do it with milk and with water. Did I notice a major difference? Not particularly for me. Now, I've spent a lot of time getting my digestive system ready to go for different stuff and repairing that. I'm also really used to taking supplements. My body just knows like, oh, you're just throwing more supplements at it. So I think my absorption rates are probably already pretty well off. Again, I think milk has something to do with more of the absorption of the stuff. So I didn't notice a major difference. That's not what I noticed, but it definitely your mileage may differ on that one. So I would advise to try both. If you're, lactose intolerant and you don't drink milk, then just do the water. It does work with water. And I didn't really notice too much of a difference for me personally. Now, I also tried it as needed to restore sleep cycles. So after the first month, I laid off, which is a pretty common practice for me to do to get a reassessment of like, am I just taking this product for no reason? What's it doing? And I did notice a slow, gradual decrease of my, I'm going to call it the non-REM. Now, I don't wear a tracker or anything like that. I'm just used to managing my own sleep cycles. I've done it a lot. I've had many different sleep cycles, different jobs, different working hours, those types of things, night, day, overnight. And so that second month, I used it as a restorative. So when I felt like I really needed to get a good night's sleep that night and things weren't going well, that's when I took it. And it did work for that. Now, I'm going to guess there's part of that is the programming of I took it for a whole month. But after that first month, I was able to kind of use it to get my sleep cycle back to where I wanted it. Was it as effective? No, it got me sleeping, but it didn't quite fix some of the other things that I was hoping it would. And I was using melatonin when I did that. I was taking a 12 milligram dose of melatonin on top of this to get the sleep cycle back into function. After that, I went to more of an Ayurvedic practice. Now, he said it's based on Ayurvedic medicine ideas and Eastern medicine ideas. And for those of you who don't know, those practices are not a take it every day practice. Most Ayurvedic medicine, when it comes to health and diet, you don't eat, we don't eat garlic every day in Ayurvedic medicine. You don't eat every spice every day. You only eat it when you need it. And that being said, that practice comes down to a break practice or a fast. So there's typically a fast and even fasting for your supplementation. So what I did was I did a six days on, 1 day off. That's just my work cycle. I work 6 days and I take a day off. So the 6 days that I work, I took it, get good restful restorative sleep. The day off, I didn't notice a difference. Now that day, I know maybe I'm going to stay up till 1 a.m, or, maybe things are going to be a little wonky. So it just makes sense anyway, not to waste the product, obviously, but you may have different mileage with this type of practice. But most Ayurvedic practice does say you want to take a day off. It just helps the body get back to a normal, rhythm. You don't want this stuff in your system because you're going to build up a tolerance. It looks like the way I'm looking at it, he may have put some work into keeping that from happening so that it could be a everyday daily supplement. That's definitely possible, but I don't know. I have never talked to him about it. I don't really know. So it's possible that it's a everyday possibility, but I find even with a 1 day off, I didn't notice a massive difference. And that 1 day off, you're probably sleeping in anyway if you get the chance. So it doesn't really matter. Yes, no, maybe not. It does work on a 6 day, 1 day off cycle. I imagine it would work on a 5 day, 2 day off cycle. If that's your work schedule, that's also a possibility, but that's pretty much it. I mean, it works. It's a great product. Clif did a great job. Thank you, Clif, for, producing this. You can find it at the link in the description below, at purebulk.com. Fantastic people over at Pure Bulk. The link in the description below will also have a % off code you can use. It supports the channel, it supports the podcast a little bit, or you could say screw me and, go to purebulk.com and buy Clif's product on your own and not, I don't make any extra money other than that. So if you don't want to, it's like a mini donation. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. It's no big deal. Purebulk.com, Clif High Pure Sleep. Get it for better restorative sleep. And again, it's really important, specifically in a mental health state or for our mental health states, to really getting really good restorative sleep. It's the only time our bodies are able to get in and actually take care of oxidative stress in the brain specifically. So restorative sleep is super important. And it looks like everything he put into this was designed to do that. So good on you, Clif. Well done. It's a great product. Take care.